Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for October 23rd, 2023. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters related to the employment history of particular pedagogical employees, the employment history of particular corporation, and matters made exempt under federal law, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for October 23rd, 2023. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones, especially the father of Mary Lou McIntosh, the father of Adiko Bini, the father of Lauren Reed, the father of Michelle Monaco, the brother of Eleanor Smith, and the grandparents of Stephen Meltz.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to go on to our first public comment. I just wanted to read something before we start. Although state law does not require us to hold a public comment period, we have chosen to do so because we believe it is crucial for us to hear from community members about their concerns and issues. Please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns and questions tonight. Speakers were asked to sign up on the sign-up sheet with their full name, address, and email. If your name is not legible or readable, we will not call upon you. Our policy 1230, public participation at board meetings, clearly states that we do not allow discussion involving or using the name or situation of individual district personnel or students. Anyone who speaks in violation of our policy will immediately give up their right to continue to speak. Speakers are expected to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Anyone using abusive or inflammatory language, using offensive language, or in any way causing a disruption will give up their right to speak. Members of the audience are expected to maintain civility and respect for the views of others. We do not allow calling out, clapping, or disruptions from the audience. We will be tracking each speaker's time, and towards the end of your 3 minutes, we will warn you to conclude. If you do not, we will abide by the 3-minute time. We will turn the microphone off. I'm sorry, I have to read that at every meeting. So we were going to start with Brian Dusencheck. Yes. Please just state your name.
My name is Brian Dusenchuk. I have a child in 7th grade and a child in 4th grade in the school district. I wanted to come to add to discussion about to present my support of installing a modified sports program here in the Yorktown Central School District, specifically here at Milford East Strang Middle School. I've been an educator here in Westchester for the past 26 years. During those years, I was both a varsity and modified coach for 12 years. I feel that starting a sports program at an earlier stage than what we currently have will teach athletes valuable life lessons, leadership, communication, and social skills. All of these aforementioned skills are applicable throughout their adult life. From a financial perspective, club sports require fees that include buying equipment and can add up quickly when added to other costs, which will usually end up being travel and meal expenses. This is an added burden to families. Modified sports offer the athlete an opportunity to compete in a sport on a competitive and interscholastic level and keep costs low. Modified sports generally have practices after school every day, keeping the student in the school environment, which has always been a safe one. One of the best things about competing for a modified team is a chance to represent one's school and community through sports and a team athletic with their teammates and to work together to develop as a team as well as their individual sports skills. School sports in most districts often begin in middle school and continue through high school. These middle school sports are important so that student athletes learn things like morale and ethics and help out tremendously with those students who might not have had an opportunity to experience organized team sports before. This could be a time when students could possibly ignite their love for sports and develop self and team discipline at every practice. One of the great things about playing your school is to be able to play with friends that you might have been together with since kindergarten, something I always stress to my students and my student athletes. Participating in sports teaches a child time management as well as decision making. Decision making is an extremely important area in the realm of sports because these things happen quickly, and athletes are used to being able to make quick decisions in order to be effective. As a former modified coach in Westchester, from a sporting perspective, part of my job was to introduce my players to the system that the varsity coaches wanted them to have played. I was able to establish a system for these future varsity players. This might include things like style of play, practice expectations, and overall program goals and objectives. Therefore, expectations were already established for the players. They then walked in with no surprises for the varsity coach, and he or she could start right up from the first day of practice, knowing that the new players understood their philosophy immediately. This was my experience doing this, like I said, as both a player back on Long Island and here being an educator the last 26 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rob Benelin?
Good evening. My name is Bob Benlin. I have a 7th grader and a 5th grader. I'm here to speak more about the modified sports proposal. I've been involved in Section 1 athletics and physical education for 35 years. I understand how important it is for our students to be involved in physical fitness in some way. Athletic teams are able to teach something that we cannot teach in the classroom. We are truly grateful for the youth programs that the YAC, YYSC, and Shrub Oak Athletic Club have provided for the kids of Yorktown for many years. But youth sports and modified sports can both coexist together. 3 main issues that I see why we should have modified sports. Not everyone can afford the pay-for-play model of athletic teams. Second, we do not have programs in our town or surrounding areas for all the high school teams that we currently field. That means that those athletes that will be at a disadvantage entering high school because other modified students have been able to play those sports for 2 years. Third, practice sessions for modified teams are held 5 days a week versus the club teams that are only meeting 2 to 3 times a week. A simple fix for a possible modified program would be to have programs that are not able to start until 9th grade. Might be programs like cross country and track and field, volleyball, field hockey, wrestling, and boys and girls tennis, which currently don't exist in town or around us. At some point, we hope down the line to possibly that you would provide other sports that we do have club programs in town, just for our students to be able to start playing with just possible future players of Yorktown. Another possible solution might be to provide intramural sports in the middle school for those students even in 6th grade. We thank you for your time and consideration in this matter.
Thank you very much. Ron, we're going to move on to your superintendent's reports.
Okay, you guys stole my thunder. So good evening, everyone. It's so great to see so many people here in attendance tonight. We have a couple of presentations for the board this evening and for our community this evening. I will make my way to the podium in a moment, and I'll share both of those presentations with our school community. First, thank you for coming out. It's great to have so many members in the audience tonight so that you can hear about a couple of other things in addition to the athletics presentation that we have planned this evening. And we're looking forward to addressing some of the items that were raised tonight, while also speaking about a facilities needs update, which we've been providing at every board meeting this year. And that's something that I've communicated through letters to our community. We've started a dedicated area on our website to speak to some of the facilities needs. We have great facilities in Yorktown, and one of the realities that we're facing is rising enrollment and rising student needs. And it's our job to be prepared to meet the enrollment and the student needs that we encounter. So I'll be giving a presentation first to our board and to the community on our facilities needs. I will quickly transition to the athletics presentation, and Mr. Barrett, our athletic director here, and he'll be co-presenting with me this evening. So I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge our school board. Last week was School Board Recognition Week all across the state, all across the country, And this is our first meeting since that time. I have certificates for you at the podium that I'll distribute momentarily. But I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of your efforts and all of your work. The time that you put into this, I know it's a volunteer assignment and you're elected and you do so well in that elected role, but the time that you give each week, each month, each day to the children of Yorktown, to this district, whether it's hours poring over policy or audit reports or planning for our facilities, I just want, on behalf of our school district, want to say thank you to you, acknowledge you for everything that you do. Please know that it's appreciated, it's noticed. I say that as superintendent, but I say that as a dad of 2 children in this district as well. I appreciate you taking away time from your own families to give time to our families, so thank you. I will make my way over to the podium. Any bet that's the most current from this afternoon? Okay. One of the things about my presentations is that they undergo iterations up until the final hour just so that they can tell the story as it ought to be told. There are 4 parts to tonight's presentation. First, we'll talk about some of the challenges that we need, and I won't read the slides to you. We'll talk about some of the work that we're considering, the budgetary cost impact, and next steps. So just some of the challenges, and to everyone who is viewing this at home, just want to share, as we do with all of these presentations, we'll clip this part of the meeting out. It will be posted to our website. The meeting voiceover will have the slides to accompany them so that there's context for the presentation. That should be available on our website at some point tomorrow during the day. So we have challenges in all of our schools. In Brookside, we're short on classrooms. Enrollment continues to grow, which is a terrific thing. Our needs continue to grow, and we have to be prepared to meet those needs. So there is a shortage of space at Brookside, and it's no secret to anyone who's been in that building recently. We need more space. Mohansick has very similar circumstances. Music is held on a stage at Mohansick. It's not something I'm proud of, and it's something that nobody in our community should be proud of. Music deserves its own classroom. We're delivering services in hallways because we're trying to make use of every square foot that we have to meet the needs of students. Crampon isn't much better. These pictures are a lot more aesthetically pleasing, but make no mistake, those are tiny, tiny rooms that we have divided up to give our students the spaces that they need, that they deserve. But we can do better. And I think we ought to do better. Middle school, now I'm showing you the worst of the pictures. Not every room looks like that. But that's a reality in some of our classrooms. Top left, that's a band classroom. That's the reality. Top right, that's some of the cabinetry in some of our classrooms. Now, the vast majority of our classrooms do not look like that. But not one classroom looking like that is too many. Our kids deserve better, mine and yours. Some of the lab countertops, those should be replaced. We look at the high school. We have needs in the high school as well. We have a music and art wing that needs to be renovated, needs to be upgraded. We have one turf field on our athletic campus. I would tell you that one's not enough. We need more space, and it's not just about athletics. Anyone who has had a middle school child knows that when it rains outside, recess is indoors, not just on that day, but on the next day, and maybe even the day after that until the mud can go away. A turf athletic field addresses that. And the mud is a situation that's real. It is difficult to bring children out for recess on a day or two after heavy rain. And lately it feels like we've had a lot of heavy rain. And I don't see that changing. With regard to some of the other needs that we have, we have arrived at a proposal that our steering committee, and my thanks to the steering committee for all of the time that you've invested, is to put small additions onto each of our 3 elementary schools. The scope of the additions and some necessary interior work for those additions are listed on the slide. It's essentially 6 classrooms, my apologies, 6 classrooms, 1-story and some 2-story additions in each of our elementary schools. The question that's most often asked is, well, you have French Hill. Why not just reopen French Hill? It's a really good question, makes a lot of sense. I'd be asking the same question. But there are 2 reasons why French Hill doesn't make much sense. And we've explored that. We convened a committee, and all of the presentations we've delivered are on our website. We convened a committee as early as 2019 to look at what our options are. And all of the options of, gee, do you move 5th grade over to the middle school? We studied them all. This is the option that makes most sense, with French Hill being a close second. And when I say close second, there's actually quite a bit of distance between option 1 and option 2. And the reason is, first of all, new construction versus renovation costs are actually quite similar. To retrofit an old school with the security, technology infrastructure, the bus staging area, and all of the other things that we've grown accustomed to in our 5 operating schools, is quite expensive to retrofit into a school. New construction actually is more cost effective. Yes, but we put a pre-K in French Hill. The beauty of pre-K is there's no technology infrastructure. There's no Wi-Fi in the classrooms, no smart boards in the classroom, no computers, iPads, so on. The same security standards don't apply that we have in our 5 operating schools, although it is a secure facility. But the other big part that doesn't make French Hill a viable option are the annual recurring expenses. When you open up a new school, you're hiring a new principal, new assistant principal, school nurse, clerical staff, 2 daytime custodians, 2 nighttime custodians, social workers, psychologist, and I can keep going. SRO, a new bus run, that's about $500,000. The annual recurring expenses for the taxpayer is about $3 million. That's each year to open up a new school. So yes, you have a new school there, and you have a school there, and that's terrific. But I just can't see us passing that burden on to the taxpayers at $3 million a year. If we extend Mohansick, we already have a principal there. We have an assistant principal, a nurse, an SRO, and staff. Maybe it's an additional cleaner for that new wing of the building, a nighttime cleaner. But we avoid those annual recurring expenses through these additions as opposed to reopening an idled school. So here's what the plan has been, and I will be presenting at every meeting. I've been presenting at every meeting, I believe, since late August, and I'll be presenting through the time that we complete this project. This is an overview of Brookside. We're proposing 2 one-story additions. Yes, we're encroaching a little bit on the ball field. We'll be able to manage that work. We have great architects who are here with us tonight. We have great construction managers, and we'll be able to work through that. At Mohansick, it's something similar. You'll see the top left corner of the building. We're proposing a 2-story, 6-classroom addition. There's Crampond. Bottom left of the screen, you'll see that we're proposing another 2-story, 6-classroom addition. At the middle school and high school, we're not adding on to the buildings, but we're going to be proposing renovations to those buildings. That's a floor plan of the middle school. All of those areas on top and in the middle of the screen that have a purple border, those classrooms are being renovated in the middle school. New hardware, the hardware is original. The cabinetry is original to the building. New ceilings and lights if they haven't been replaced. If they have been replaced recently, we will not be adding ceilings and lights to those. New flooring, paint. We're looking at renovating this room. Look around. Every middle schooler comes through this room every day. I agree. So we can refresh that space and this space, and we should. We should do that for our students, for our children. The lockers. If anyone has had a middle schooler come through, those half lockers aren't the most friendly to a child. We see that. We've spoken to enough students to understand what the reality is for their day-to-day experience in our buildings. We want to make that better. At the high school level, we're looking to completely revamp the music wings, as we are in the middle school, and the art rooms here as well, and to really establish a space for our science research program, our world-renowned science research program. We're looking to add an additional turf field. That's the baseball field. Anyone who has been on that field knows that it's not very conducive to drainage. It retains water, and it's difficult to play in. In fact, many of our baseball games are played over at Granite Knolls. In the outfield, there's a multi-purpose field. That would allow for field hockey. It can be lined for soccer and lacrosse as well. And now, everything that I just touched upon, up to this point, is in our first proposition. The first proposition, I'll get to that in a moment, is coming in at around $46 million. Now, what impact will that have on taxpayers? One of the things that we heard from our community is that the community wants safety and security upgrades, which will be part of this bond, and they want something that does not impact taxes. That's something that came through loud and clear in our survey, and we had about 600 community members participate in the survey. We really appreciate that. The input was valuable. Everything that we've shown, including the additions and the renovations to the middle school, high school, and this turf field, will have no additional tax burden. So this will come in at about $46 million in between. I believe that we can, and I shared this months ago, that I thought that there was a pathway forward for us to come out with a tax-neutral bond, a bond that does not raise taxes any more than they are currently. And through some retiring debt, through some very strategic planning with our fiscal capital reserve fund, we can do all of this at no additional impact to taxpayers. Now, there are some additional items that we have received in feedback from our community. So our board is well aware of this. For those who are viewing or will be viewing this presentation from home, I won't read the slide to you, but there are some other really important items that we have to address. The cafeteria and servery at Mohansick. After we renovate this cafeteria, I'm operating under the assumption that the first bond at no impact to taxes will pass. Mohansick's cafeteria and servery will be the only cafeteria that has not been upgraded in the past 5 years. And the children of Mohansick deserve to have that facility upgraded because it is in a similar situation to this one. The servery line is inefficient. Children have to go out into the hallway and go into the kitchen area to get their food. It should be a little more user-friendly for 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old children. We're looking at an additional turf field. And I'll show you an example of that in a moment. We're looking at a generator for critical infrastructure and also an area outside for bathrooms and a concession stand. For anyone who's attended a game on our campuses, I think you'd agree that the bathroom facilities could be upgraded. And that's part of the calculus here. This is the proposed addition, Proposition 2. It has the original field, that's in Proposition 1. The additional proposition would provide a fully lined field where football, soccer, lacrosse, obviously boys and girls, can play on this field and any other field and any other sport that can be played on turf. And then we're also looking at a bathroom and concession stand facility as well, and the placement of that. This would assist with middle school recess, especially the addition of some basketball and pickleball courts on the side there. You can see one, but the plan is to have more than one, 2 or 3. And that also gives our middle school students another option for recess. And it gives our high school students options as well. Proposition 1, I shared this with you. We're going to post this to our website so that the community all has this information. There wouldn't be an additional impact to taxes with Proposition 1. It gets us the space that we need, and we're not overbuilding. That's the important thing to remember here. There are enrollment studies that were conducted. Anyone who has driven around town knows that there's development happening in town. We had the developers of those projects provide us with enrollment projections. And the latest projection that we received says that if 400 units are developed in town, we will see 40 students as a result. I know. So we had our own study commissioned to look at the enrollment. And believe it or not, we were higher, but not by as much as you would think 400 units would result. But we have to be prepared for that. That's the reality. But as it stands right now, we need space. Even without a new student coming through the door, we need more space. And so we're not overbuilding. I don't believe we're underbuilding. There's a aidability range that the state provides because we do get reimbursed on the construction costs. And we are going to go to that threshold of 6 classrooms in each of the elementary schools based on our enrollment and our projections. The number of new students is to be determined. I think it will be somewhere higher than 9 out of 10 units bringing no children to the school district, and the 1 out of 10 units that remain bringing exactly 1 child to the school district. So that's how 40 out of 400 computes. But we still need the space regardless, and we can make that happen without any additional tax burden. Proposition 2 is as we laid out. We're still reviewing that proposition. The way it would work is if Proposition 1 passes, then Proposition 2 would pass. 1 would have to pass in order for 2 to be considered. We're still, like I said, refining. We're meeting actually tomorrow. The steering committee meets every 2 weeks and spends hours reviewing each detail. And for anyone who's been in our high school gymnasium, I think that's just evidence of the amount of thought and detail that goes into the developments that we make around here. What I always share is we might be a little bit late to the dance, but when we do it better than anyone else in the region. And I look at these facilities that we're proposing and then also recarpeting the existing turf field. Putting a new state-of-the-art turf, and the infill would be an EDPM. Is that it? EPDM infill? And that is, I'm sorry? With a shock pad as well, so it's a little safer for our athletes. The infill is not the traditional rubber that's used. It's made up of tires that are recycled. This is a untreated virgin rubber that uses the same grade as children's toys. So this is certainly a higher threshold and a higher quality product that we're proposing. And I'm happy to take any questions from the board. This is a timeline that is quite aggressive, but there are many factors here that we have to consider to make this a tax-neutral bond for our community. And the aggressive timeline takes under consideration the retiring debt that we have and trying to time that out so that we can begin our debt service on the new project and having that coincide with the retiring debt. The aidability of the projects, the capital reserve funds that we have, and trying to put all of those together, working with our fiscal advisors and bond counsel to just make sure that we can leverage all of the different opportunities we have to make this tax neutral for the community. So that's where we are. We have Daryl and Tina here from Amasi Architects. They can answer any questions that the board has. I'm happy to answer them as best I can. Not much has changed. As I present every 2 weeks, the changes are very incremental at this point. I've attached some dollar figures for this go-round. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. If not, I'm happy to move on to the second presentation.
Thank you. Cheryl, I'm going to skip you for right now because you have more knowledge. I'm going to go to Mike first. You have questions?
I'm just trying to understand the current turf field that we have. Part of this is to renovate that?
So
But
separate.
I don't see where that is in the numbers, so help break
So-
that out.
So in 2017, we established a capital reserve fund, and the voters have authorized investments in that capital reserve fund year after year. So we would be using existing monies that we already have independent of a bond to replace what's called the carpet, the top layer of that turf field. The drainage, the subflooring is already there. We would put a shock pad, the new turf, and the infill.
And that's slated to be done this summer.
We're hoping to have that done this summer.
So under proposal 1, we end up with 2 essentially new
Correct.
turf fields.
Right, the Charlie Murphy field that's
Yeah.
in existence now would be refreshed,
Yep.
including a resurfacing of the track, and then the baseball field with a multi-purpose field in the outfield.
And then proposition 2 is adding a third
Correct.
turf field
Correct.
into the mix.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Catalina? Pete?
Just one question.
In the microphone, please.
Why is it split into 2
In
propositions?
the microphone.
Why is it split into 2 propositions?
So-
Why can't it be combined?
So the first proposition, everything in that proposition, to effectively run the school district, I need everything in that proposition 1. Those are emergent items. In 2 years from now, I can't promise you that we have enough room for our students. So we need, though, it's going to be a real challenge to run the school district without the space, to continue with without some of the upgrades that we need in our classrooms. Not having functioned cabinetry and storage spaces for our classrooms makes it a real challenge. So those are of an emergent nature. In Proposition 2, those are, I believe they're important items, but I can operate a school district without bathrooms outside. We'd like to have those, but the portable bathrooms can work. I think we can do better than that, but in Proposition 1, those are just kind of the things that we absolutely need. And truth of the matter is, we had to pare that list down because when we first estimated, and we wanted to make it tax neutral. That was something we heard from our community, is we want a tax neutral proposal. So we put what we absolutely needed in order to continue our operations at the highest level that we can in Prop 1. And then Prop 2 has some of the other really important things, a generator to power critical infrastructure. That's really important. Power goes down. I live in town too. When you lose power, I lose power. I'd like to get a message out to our school community. Our internet, our servers all go down here when the power goes down. If I can keep the servers here operational, fire systems operational, the fridge, the freezers in our cafeteria, our main storage is in the high school. If we can keep those systems up and running, it's less lost food that the taxpayers pay for. It's less material that we just have to throw out that gets damaged. So those are important, but can we operate the school district without a generator? I suppose we could. We have. But those are items that we identified that were also very important, just not necessarily with the urgency that Prop 1 has.
Catalina, did you have a question?
Talking to the microphone.
Into the microphone. If the proposal goes through 1 and 2, would the 2 turf field be redone and the new turf field simultaneously?
So we would have to work with our construction managers to put a timeline together. We anticipate the existing turf field, that work happening this summer. So that's irrespective of Prop 1 and Prop 2. And then if Prop 1 passes and Prop 2 passes, we would certainly time out the work to minimize the downtime of the fields. It will take our fields offline for a little bit, the baseball field and the lower grass area. But we would work with our construction managers to time that out. We would obviously want the first turf field finished and done before we begin any work on the second and third turfs.
Cheryl?
Dr. Hatter, if you could just go through the next steps. I see there are some acronyms and terminology in there that I'm not sure everyone's familiar with. So just, if
Yeah.
you just define, as you go through the next steps, just define exactly what's going on according to the dates
So I'm going to rely
associated
on
with it.
I'm going to rely on my eyes. I have no notes,
Thank you.
so I'm going to rely on my eyes. I think the first acronym is SECRA. So that's an environmental review process that we have to go through because we are doing some substantial work outside. So all of the environmental considerations, drainage, water runoff, we have a wetlands area in proximity. Those are all things that have to go into the calculus and the planning. So a secra is an environmental review. The other acronyms that I'm seeing, obviously, I'm sorry?
EAF.
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 I'm sorry, the environmental assessment review. Okay, EAF, I'm hearing PAF, I'm like, no, that's our ELA program. EAF is an environmental assessment review that we have to undergo as well.
Thank you.
These are standard, we actually, almost every project, you have some sort of a secret if you do it outside. This will be a much larger one because we're, hitting more spaces in all the buildings. I don't necessarily have questions because I meet every 2 weeks, so I know what's going on. I just want the community to know, we started out, it was almost $60 million, and we pared it down to the 46. We didn't stretch to get this. We worked hard to rein it in because we knew it was really important to keep it at a certain level for the community. And we're confident that we can do this. We have great architects, we have great construction managers, and we've had our construction manager for 18 years now. They haven't really led us astray, and they're the ones helping us with the numbers and understanding our process. So I know we have a lot more steps to go. We have more detail that will come as we go through this process. I don't know if anybody had any other questions. Go ahead, Mike.
So Catalina brought up a good point about how these things time out. And I know when we did our last bond, I think the projects were scheduled over like a 6-year period.
Mm-hmm.
What are we estimating that this is going to take us if we did both pieces?
Those are questions that we're going to talk to our construction managers. We don't have that. We have to nail down scope before they can tell us how that they would do it. One of the things is they've always been very strict with us, and they lead us. They've been very strict with us. They will never take on more than they can promise to finish at a set time. So when we were doing all the renovations, we could only do enough in a summer that we could reopen school with.
Right.
Now, this would be a little bit different, but they would take the lead because they would know what is capable of being done.
And in general, and our construction managers are great. It will take multiple years. I don't think it'll take 6 years, but one of the things with us is when we give you a timeline, we're pretty good with the timelines. The gym was a huge renovation piece. We were there on time, open for school, and we met those deadlines. The cafeteria renovations were huge. Deadlines met, budget met, and that's why it takes us a little time to develop these plans, but once we do, we'll certainly share it, and once we do share the timeline, that's what we're sticking to.
Okay, that's fine. I just want the community to
Yeah.
understand that this isn't like we vote on it and next year all this stuff happens, right? This is going to be,
This is multi-year.
it's going to take a while to get to where we want.
The
to
state ed review is 8
Yeah,
months
could be,
or so.
state ed review could be a year. So
I get all
one of the things people have to understand is that we're hamstringed by certain things. Like, we can't have actual floor plans and designs because until the community says, yes, they will allow us to do this, then we can ask the architects to design anything. We're not allowed to spend taxpayer money without their approval. So,
So Jackie, to that, if, assuming it passes in February, what is it 1 year? Just an estimation, 1 year, 18
before
months?
we
2
even
years?
started, well, we don't know, we'd have to talk to the architects how long it would take to actually design everything, and then it would have to go to state ed, and a lot of times your problem is how long state ed takes. State ed could take 6 weeks, it could take 6 months, it
That's
could
the
take a
wild part
year.
here.
That is and you have no control over how long that review would take, and you cannot start until they have given you the approvals.
They used to have a third-party expedited review where you can get it done in 8 weeks or whatever the time frame was. They've done away with that. It was just a system that they weren't able to sustain, so they're back to the 6 to 10 month window.
But
I don't know if
setting it-
Daryl and Tina know what the timeline is,
I
if they.
think we'll develop that. I don't know if there is any
Okay.
way to find out if there's a timeline at this point.
No,
so
they
it's
sometimes
something-
know general timelines up at state
SED
ed.
review is how long, Darren? 6 to 8 months.
Currently, yeah, and that could change.
And
yeah.
it changes.
So realistically, this is 1 year to 18 months out before,
We even
A
put a
shovel
shovel
goes
to the
into the
ground,
ground.
at least.
and really they're setting the expectation to the community and that this is not going to, happen next September.
No, that's why it's critical we
Yep.
start now, because we are having to face these problems coming up.
So at our next board meeting, I'll provide another update. So whatever transpires at tomorrow's meeting will again be turned around as an update to the community when we meet next.
Okay, did anybody have any more questions? Are we good?
Okay,
Good.
so with that
Thank
said,
you.
we'll transition
All right.
to the next presentation, which is on athletics. This was the one that was most recent from the Google Slides. Yes, okay. So this will also, we'll have this presentation posted to our website as well, and with certainly the narrative overlaying this. So the board had received some inquiries with regard to modified sports, and what we agreed at, I believe it was the last meeting or the meeting prior to that, I believe it was the meeting prior to that, end of September, we agreed to just come back and open up the conversation and have a discussion on athletics, modified sports, offerings, and some of the just realities of a modified sports program. So I don't view this as a start, a middle, and an end to the conversation. I view this as the start of a conversation. I anticipate that we'll have some work to do after this presentation, and we'll have to report back to the board with what we learned during our continued research. So to begin the presentation, I'm going to invite our athletic director, Mr. Barrett, to the podium to present to the board and to our community. I do want to share that this is information sharing. It's not advocacy for a position. It's not advocacy for installing modified sports or not installing modified sports. It's just really designed to do what we had discussed doing about a month ago, which is having a conversation to ensure that our community is aware that we're understanding of the questions, the inquiries that we're receiving, and to make sure that the board has as much information as possible as we continue the discussion. So at this point, Rob, I'll turn it over to you. That advances.
Okay. Sorry. Good evening. Thank you for having me. We're going to talk about my favorite subject outside of turf fields today. So I know you guys love that. But I did want to talk about sports, and obviously I've had a few conversations with some parents. I'm assuming they're here tonight. But I did want to share what the philosophy of Yorktown Central School District has been prior to me and now that I'm here as well. So the philosophy over the years, let me put this up, sorry, got to get used to doing both of these, over the years has been to find ways to keep the ninth graders that are coming into our schools engaged, okay? And that's been discussed a variety of ways, including the arts, and of course athletics, and of course clubs. So there's been a big push, again, as I said, prior to me, with all the freshman teams that they've had, at previously JVB teams. So since I've been here, we've added a variety of sports, including our JVB volleyballs. We've made some adjustments to wrestling. We've added boys volleyball. We've added JVB soccer in an effort to kind of continue that same philosophy. We talked about that several years ago. I think might have been my second year. What do we think is important at that point? Our building principal was in on that discussion, and that's kind of the philosophy that was already established, but that we also decided that we wanted to maintain, and then hence the reason why we added some other sports at that time. So just to reiterate some of the words that were spoken here by some of our community members, I too am in agreement that the benefits of athletics obviously are immense. There's a long list, as you can see, and I do, as I say to many parents, believe that sports is a microcosm of the real world, right? So all the things that we deal with in athletics, adversity, teamwork, leadership, all of those things, those are things that we're hoping that our student athletes will walk away with when they leave here at the high school and go on to college and the work world. So I won't hit that home. I think we've heard that from our community here a little bit earlier. Just to give you an idea of what we currently have in our student participation, we put these annually in our budget presentations. So some of this might be something you've seen before, but obviously just to go over, we have 68 teams, a current roster of 74 coaches, And then we have a little over 1,000 students. In past years, they've done studies, with that and come out with a number that we have about 70% of our students playing at least one sport at the high school level, which I think is a tremendous number. That number has probably increased again because we've added additional sports since that study was done. So again, I think that number is probably a little higher than what we've had in the past. So that slide's a little small for you there, but again, just these are the teams that we have. But I do want to note that somebody asked about 8th graders and 7th graders, and I just want to kind of go through quickly what sports we have currently or have had since I've been here, where we have 7th or 8th graders that have been able to participate. So I know tennis was brought up earlier. We have had the opportunity to have several 8th graders in my time here play on our JV tennis teams. Cheerleaders, we've had some 8th graders. Field hockey, we've had some 8th graders as well. Girls soccer, some, but not very many. I think one year we've had it. Swim and dive, we've had 8th graders involved. Swim and dive boys, we've had 8th graders involved as we work our way through. Wrestling, just recently, just to give you an idea. So we do kind of listen. I want to be clear, we do listen to the kind of things that are going on with our community, but also our coaches. It came to light that we were at a competitive disadvantage in the sport of wrestling, where the schools that we were competing against were using 7th and 8th graders for some of those lower weight classes, and we would start our contest behind maybe 6 points or 12 points. In recent years, we've changed that to add 7th and 8th graders so that we can compete. Right? It's not fair to the rest of the team because we don't have a weight class, and other schools are using 7th and 8th graders to do that. So we did make that change in an effort to be competitive. I will add on a side note, right now we're the number 1 ranked team going into the team tournament in wrestling, so the change was a positive one. So, and it seems to be long-term now. Hopefully that is the case. Cheerleading, we've had 8th graders. Skiing, we've traditionally had 8th graders as well. Ice hockey, again, we're in a merger with ice hockey. The question then became, well, we have our merged teams that we merge with are using 7th and 8th graders. Would we be able to do that? We started with 8th graders and 7th graders, but that is a modified 7th, 8th, and 9th grade team. So in an effort to be fair to this merger, we made that adjustment as well. Gymnastics, we traditionally have 8th graders. Softball, we've had 8th graders at times, most recently last year. Girls lacrosse, we've had 8th graders. Boys golf, we had 8th graders. In fact, we had just one young man just qualify for states as an 8th grader. And tennis, we've had 8th grade as well for boys. So we are providing, just to give you a little bit of, we've had last year alone, we had 7 8th graders and almost 50 8th graders participate in high school sports. Sorry, yes, 7 7th graders and almost 50 8th graders, sorry. So their recognition of student athletes, we have, obviously, this slide is to show you that we do have a direct correlation between student athletes. Our athletes have done really well on the Scholar Athlete, which is an award for kids or teams that have 90 GPA or higher. So we've done very, very well in all of these types of things. We've had kids that are very competitive. Somebody did mention, the competitiveness would enhance our competitiveness. I will say we are very competitive for sure. We've had All-Americans since I've been here in many sports. We've had all section, all state. We've had qualifiers for states and all that type of stuff. So we have been very competitive all along. Again, just this slide right here, again, just to show you what we've offered. And I think I spoke to it a little bit about the kids that we've had from other grades. But just back to our initial philosophy, we want to have ninth graders engaged. Okay, that's been the philosophy. We can debate the philosophy, but certainly that's what it's been, and I just want everybody to be aware of it, that the thought behind it was that if we have ninth graders involved, it's a transition year. Let's give them as many opportunities. Now, the nice thing about JVB teams, because there are some sports that don't have freshmen, that are traditionally just freshmen, there's another year that a student athlete could be connected to the high school, meaning that they make it as a freshman on the JVB team. They don't necessarily make the JVA team as a 10th grader. They still have another year. And then who knows where their development goes. Maybe they end up being on varsity, maybe they don't. But at least they're connected to the high school for at minimum 1 year, maybe 2 years on top of that. So just, again, the offerings that we have for freshmen. And again, I just talked about some of the 8th graders being in there. So just want to make sure we know that piece. I do want to give you a sample of our practice schedules, just to give you an idea. So currently we have 6 teams. When you have freshman teams, now it's not just JV and varsity. So currently we have 6 teams that are 2 freshmen JV, 2 freshmen boys and girls, 2 JV boys and girls, 2 varsity boys and girls. That would be a sample schedule of time there, where the facilities in use at both the middle school and the high school. So you're looking at 2:30 to 4:30, 4:30 to 6:30, 6:30 to 8:30. Again, you'll notice at the YHS gym, right, the varsity teams want to practice on the court that they're going to be playing on, right? They're the varsity. They have the biggest aspirations about state tournaments, section titles, league titles, and so on. So they'll be practicing. Again, there's any combination that could happen here, because depending on who your coach is, what their availability is, that type of stuff, there's that could all change. But typically, those are the time slots that we have for practice, just for basketball. So I wouldn't have my notes here. My eyes aren't very good, so bear with me as I go through this. So just a little bit about what modified sports are. The Modified Interscholastic Sports Program is a sports for pupils below 10th grade. This is coming from the New York State Public High School website, consisting of 7th through 9th graders. Individual sports are modified and playing requirements are incorporated. So there are some things that I'm not sure everybody's aware of with modified, maybe so, but maybe not, is that there are things that come with that. So they're modified. They're modified for the kids that are playing. So for example, and I just throw a couple in here, there's rotating players. So you're playing first and third, second and fourth quarter. The kids that don't get in might play in a 5th quarter if the other school had enough kids to be able to play in that 5th quarter. And if they wanted to. So there's those types of reduced special teams in football, an extra period or quarter, like I said, number of games, rest between games. Those are all things that come into play, because now it's the state level. The youth level is very different compared to the state. I will say on a side note that I have a 7th and 8th grader right now, and we're going through like that age level, and they're all playing sports right now. So I can speak kind of to what they do as well, and as well. So just a little history. The district did offer a limited modified sports program nearly 20 years ago. The change in philosophy kind of changed to offering a more robust, freshman grouping, and kind of keeping the kids engaged. Like I said earlier, we did revisit the idea back in my 2nd year, I believe it was, like I said, what the approach would be. And then the thought was to just kind of keep with the idea of keeping our freshmen involved and, engaged, giving them the opportunity to meet their friends, kind of establish themselves at the high school. That, I think, along with that, became adding more and more clubs, and those types of things were kind of in line with the sports piece as well. So it wasn't just the sports thing; it was a whole concept that we would add more clubs and those types of things, so that we're engaging our high school students. Okay, I will turn it over now, I think. Oh no, I have one more. Sorry. So just I'll give you a little perspective, okay, and I can talk to some of these because my kids are playing them as well. So modified sports standards. So the state comes out with the number of games that you can play in a given year. They come out with the rules that you know for each of the sports. So just to give you an idea, basketball, the number of games they would be able to play is 14. They would need 2 nights rest in between those 14 games. And again, I just took this right off the state website. Football, 7 games in total. Lacrosse, 12. Soccer, 12. Volleyball, and so on. I won't read them all to you. And as you can see, that they have the number of nights of rest, and then some of the rules, you know, that might be different than what you're used to seeing at the high school level or at your youth level sports. So just giving you some ideas. You know, but I do want you to note the number of games. That's the one thing that sticks out to me, knowing that my son plays basketball and he's played roughly 25 games last year versus the 14 games that the state allows you to play. So just giving you an idea of the reality of some of those things. Okay, for you know football, my son also plays football. They play 7 at the modified level. They're able to play 10 at the youth level. So there's those, you know, just to give you an idea. I'm not, as we said earlier, I'm listening. We want to listen, but I do want to give you some of the reality of it as a parent as well, because I'm in that age group. I have a 7th and 8th grader, so just to give you an idea. I will turn it over to Dr. Hatter.
Thanks, Rob. So I want to first say thank you to the board for asking us to look into this, because it was a learning experience for me. It was a learning experience for Rob. And I thought that the questions, I have more questions than I do answers at this point, because I think that's what any authentic research does, is it sparks more questions that you want to continue to answer. So as I was sitting down preparing for tonight, and what I would say to you, these were some of the things that we need to figure out. If this is our direction, these are things that we need to be able to answer. The first question that I don't have an answer to is, how do we fit this into our budget? Well, first, we don't know what the scope is. So are we starting with 1 sport, 2 sports, 2 years from now, 3 sports, 5? Based on scope, we'll be able to figure out budget. So I don't have budget information for you at this point. But what I do know is that there is a tax cap. And the amount that we're able to raise spending has a limitation. There are other factors that are competing within the budget. We have a transportation contract that is up at the end of this year. We're going to rebid that. Price of transportation has only gone in one direction. We have student needs that we're seeing, staffing, contractual costs. So all of the other operating costs have increased. How do we fit this within that framework? And that'll be work that we'll do, that the administration will be charged to do. Field and gym space is another consideration. Now, if we had those turf fields, it certainly would be helpful. However, one of the benefits of the turf fields, one of the reasons, time's up, one of the reasons why I really like the idea of the turf fields is we have high school students practicing until a little later than I would like my high school student to be practicing. Having more turf fields can get children off of the fields earlier, get them home, doing homework, studying. Yes, they will study and they will do homework when they get home. And so having the children off the field, I thought earlier, is a good thing for children, rather than trying to fit in practices until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, especially with first period starting at 7:30 the following morning. So we'll have to work to negotiate space and figure out where we can find space, depending on the sport. If it's basketball, it's more challenging. If it's track, hey, we've got that. We've got trails. We have areas where children can run. So it's not a universal challenge. It's more sport specific. Availability of referees. It's not just unique to Yorktown. I think that's something that every community within the section is experiencing. Modified rules is another piece, and this is something I haven't had a conversation with our coaches about, and I'm sure Rob will. In, for example, modified football, there's no kickoff and no kick return. So theoretically, you take a sixth grader, and the last time that they'll ever practice a kickoff and a kick return will be as sixth graders until they get to the high school. I don't know how our varsity coach feels about that, but we'll ask. There are other considerations within the rules. That's just the one that sticks out in my mind. Cuts. There will be cuts. Not every child will make a modified sports team. I'll use basketball as an example. Right now, I think we have about 75 to 100 seventh graders in the youth basketball program. We have 75 to 100 eighth graders in the program. And it's a nice program. It's an in-house program. But conservatively, there are about 150 children who qualify for the sport or who participate currently. A modified basketball team will have maybe 15 roster spots. So the question then becomes, where do the other 135 children go? Well, some may argue, well, they can go back to the youth sports program. Well, that's certainly a possibility. I don't know the extent that the youth sports program will run. I can't promise you. We don't run those organizations, so I just don't know the extent to which the youth sports programs will run. So what may happen is maybe there's a registration in advance, 100% of the fee, non-refundable to sign up for the program, and some may elect to do that. Some may elect to try out for the modified team. Children who get cut from the modified team may not have a spot anywhere else. So those are just some considerations that we'll obviously have to work through if that's the path that we go down. But today, I don't have a good answer for you for the children who do not make the team. And there will be cuts, even if a third of the children in the program try out for the sport. There are a limited number of roster spots, even on football and all the other sports that are theoretically no-cut sports. Just the volume of children who would be interested would really limit playing time or even roster size. Impact on youth sport offerings, that's just something that we would consider as a community partner, but it's certainly not for us to answer. It's just, I wanted to put all of my thoughts on paper for you. It's just something that's come through my mind. There would be an elimination of some of the freshman and JVB teams. What happens now, for example, Rob and I just had this conversation about a JVB girls basketball team. We have some additional students beyond a JV team, maybe about 8 or 9 students. Not enough to field a full basketball team. We would fill that roster out with 8th graders so that we can have a full team. As we go with a modified sports program, I just don't know if we can offer a sport with 8 children. So those are some of the impacts. Again, what's the extent of the impact? It depends on the sport that we're offering. It may not have any impact. The game opportunities is another reality. There's not a minimum play count in many areas. In some areas there are, but in many areas there's not a minimum play count. And then the practice time piece, I hit on this, but I just want to give an example. If we look at Rob's example and just piggyback on that and add modified, you figure you'd have the modified program go earlier, shorten practice. Instead of 2 hours, maybe it's an hour and a half at that level. We only have 2 gyms that are adequate in size. Could we practice at Mohansick or at Crampon? Yeah. But now, as a superintendent, I've got to get the children there, so I'm hiring a bus every day after school to transport children. There's a cost that is associated with that we just have to be prepared to answer. So those are just some of the considerations, and it makes sense that a team would want to practice in the gymnasium where they're going to play. It makes sense, and I understand that. And then if we have a game on that day, there are warm-ups, and those are some things that we just have to consider in terms of cancellation of practices and exploring alternate locations. So lots of considerations, lots of questions that we have, but I appreciate the opportunity to research and to look into this further. I'm enjoying the conversations that I'm having. I'm having conversations with parents, conversations with students, conversations with members of our community who have expressed an opinion one way or the other, and hearing the different perspectives has ultimately resulted in a lot of the questions that I have. But most importantly, we want to do what's right for our children. That always, on this board, I'm always so amazed by the 7 of you. I know 2 aren't here tonight, but them included, I'm always so amazed by the 7 of you, that you always put children first. So we're going to continue to investigate. I wish I had more answers at this point for you. I don't. And I think it's fair that we don't have those answers at this point, because tonight was an opening of a conversation, not the conclusion of a conversation. So we'll continue to gather information. We'll continue to look at what sports might be feasible to offer, given the facilities that we have, given the reality of what our students need. We'll continue to talk to our varsity coaches to hear their perspective in terms of what they believe would be helpful in the programs long-term. And we'll report back. I don't have a timetable yet, but we'll certainly come back and we'll publicize that. We'll send it out in one of my updates. We'll send that out to the community. But if you have any questions now, I'm happy to add those to my list of questions. If I have an answer for you tonight, I'll certainly provide it. But if I don't, I'll also let you know that I'll get you an answer.
Thank you. It was very eye-opening. Rob, thank you. I appreciate it too. Cheryl, do you have any questions for now?
Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. So one of the things you talked about was that there will definitely be cuts. My husband was a modified sports coach in another Westchester district, and that was definitely an issue that they dealt with. It was well attended. People, the children participated, so they definitely had more than they even could put on a team tryout. What happens, have we thought of the opposite, if, our culture has become so embedded in playing in these other leagues that we don't have enough children come out and try out for these teams? Have we thought about that, and what would we do? Would we idle the program for a year and then revisit it the next year? How would that work?
That's a great question. Most of the offerings that we have here come from our students. Last year, you'll all recall, we started a boys volleyball program. It was a group of students who came up to me and then ultimately Rob to say, hey, we'd like to play boys volleyball. We don't have any opportunity to do that. And so we offered the program. We anticipated a JV boys volleyball team this year. We don't have the numbers. And so we're not running the program this year. We're hoping to run it next year. So we would not run the program if we don't have the student interest. Same thing with flag football for this year. We had a group of students come up to us, interest in flag football. We're going to run that this spring, first year. And should we see the demand from our students, because they will dictate, the students will determine what sports we offer, and they'll determine, well, our facilities will also determine what sports we offer. But the students wanted a flag football program. We can do that for them. We're going to offer it. And should the need for a JV team come, we'll certainly have that conversation based on enrollment. And if we don't have the enrollment in a given year, we'll hold the program. And we are fluid. At times we'll offer a JVB. We won't offer a JVB in certain sports. So we try to be as responsive, and we try to minimize cuts. That's ultimately the goal. It's unavoidable in many cases, but we do try to minimize cuts. With the modified teams, with one team at one level, I do believe that we'll have more than 15 children who expressed interest in modified basketball.
Thank you. Mike?
Thanks for putting this together. I mean, it's been a long time since we really talked about modified sports, and I guess I have a lot of questions, but the one that I'm interested in first would be, I appreciate the opportunities that we offer to 7th and mostly 8th graders to play high school level, but what are some of the things that they can do at the middle school level now? What do we provide them? I know there are some clubs. What exactly can they do if they want to stay at that middle school level?
So there was interest at the middle school level for a volleyball club. So one of the things this evening that I'll be asking you to approve is a volleyball club at the middle school level. That might be an option that we'll consider further, that we should consider further. Are there an intramural type, an in-house type of club offering that we can establish at the middle school level that maybe would have no or few cuts that would play by similar rules. Those are all options that we can consider. I haven't gone far enough down that road to make that determination or recommendation at this point. But everything is worth considering, and we'll certainly consider what options we can offer from a club perspective or an intramural perspective.
Catalina?
Thank you for the presentation tonight. So doing a little research before as well, I was looking at all the different districts around us that have modified sports: Hen Hutz, Somers, Peekskill, Fox Lane, Arlington, Mayapack, Lakeland, Chappaqua, Bronxville, John Jay Cross River. Does that put us at a disadvantage, especially for the sports that we don't have feeder programs for? We don't have cross country. And there's no freshman or JV. Nobody's gone up.
From the feeder program, if there's an absence of a feeder program, I would posit yes, that it does put us at a disadvantage if we don't have a feeder program. With regard to the districts that do have a modified sports program, I think one of the important factors to consider is the program in its entirety. So if they have modified, do they also have freshmen, JV, varsity? Do they have JVB teams? So one of the things that we'll do is we'll compile a list in the aggregate as opposed to who offers modified sports, because I think it's an important piece of information to have to complement modified sport offerings is what are their offerings at the high school level. So is it in lieu of something at the high school level? And once we have that information, we'll share it, and it'll be a conversation that will continue in terms of, do we want to go this route or this route? I don't know of many districts that run the full gamut of a modified, a freshman, a JVA, a JVB, a varsity team. I don't know many districts that do that, but we'll research that.
And
Wait, go ahead.
One question at a time.
One question.
I'm only kidding.
Go ahead, Pete.
Okay. So I was around 20 years ago when we put modified program in. Actually, one of the coaches is sitting there in the back of the room. And at the time, we had to make some decisions. They were budgetary decisions. We had to literally look at freshman teams, and in order to take one to put another one in.
In the microphone.
We could not add a program because of the budgetary constraints that we had. So when I think about this, and I'm all for modified sports, but there's going to be kind of a yin and yang here. We're going to have to give something up in order to get something. In terms of whether it's a freshman or a JVB or something, in order to fit something in, because if a sport costs $50,000 to run, we've got to go find $50,000 to put it in. It's kind of my long way of getting to you. Just a point of clarification. You said there were 7 seventh graders and roughly 48 or 68?
48.
So there's roughly 55 7th and 8th graders that are kind of coming up, which is roughly, 5 or 6% of the entire athletic population. If we look at these freshmen or JVB teams that are struggling every year to have to come up, I guess why wouldn't we look at taking whatever sport that is and looking at it from a modified level, because we're not getting the participation year in and year out? I think that's one of the things to really look at, because I think we have to have the data to say 1 year we got it, 1 year we don't have it. So I would hope that that becomes part of the analysis in order to kind of look at it. So, and I haven't asked the question yet. So,
Well done.
I guess really, do you? And this is probably for Rob. Do you believe we have the necessary feeder programs in the youth area to support our high school programs? And just philosophically, it's more of a philosophical question. Is there?
So as I said to a couple of parents who I spoke to on the phone, I think that our high school programs do very, very well. And that if you asked ADs across the section to kind of rank the teams, schools that are top 10 type of schools athletically, I think we're on many of those lists. I'm going to be honest with you. And the conversations amongst athletic directors are, and the comments that are made to me is, your youth program is so strong. Okay. Do we have some holes in our youth program? Of course, that don't support some of the school sports that we have here. Yes. But as a whole, our youth programs do very, very well. And that is translated into the high school level. So, I would say most athletic directors would say our youth program is one of the better in the area, for sure. And that, again, like I said, it kind of moves along to the high schools when you have that kind of group. So, do I think the better question is looking at some of those sports that are not supported by the YAC? Yeah, I think that'd be a great conversation to have. I'd be happy to have that conversation, for sure. That might be something certainly we'd look at. We're going to look at it, a lot of things, obviously, after tonight, but that would definitely be one that I would be certainly very, very interested in doing.
Cheryl, do you have any more questions?
I'm all set. Thank you for now.
Mike?
Pete, can you clarify for me, when you guys are talking about a feeder program, what exactly what are you referring to? Are we talking about kids that start out as youths and make it to the varsity level, or are we talking about, do we capture a large number of our young children and have them play a sport? Like, what is a feeder program in your mind?
In my mind, a feeder program is actually when they do get to high school, the programs at the high school continue to provide very competitive teams. So, because as you get into high school, technically the funnel is going to get smaller, and less kids are going to have opportunities at the high school level. I believe the high school level is about competitive and what the best product you're putting on the field. And I don't want that to sound as that I don't care for the whole student, but there is a impact of fielding competitive teams. And that's why there's cuts. That's why everybody doesn't get a chance to play. And that's why some kids are just happy to be on the team. So I believe it's more about getting the most kids the ability to have the opportunity to play at a level, but understanding that the funnel is going to get smaller.
But at the high school level
At the high
where
school
you're
level.
starting your
Well,
feeder
really,
program.
I'm a big believer in the 7th and 8th, in the modified, because I do believe it helps those kids get to the next level. So that's my opinion.
Can let Rob comment.
I was just going to say, to your point, is my concern is I want kids involved in sports. So adding a modified theoretically makes that funnel start sooner. Okay? Because you're starting to cut kids in 7th grade, potentially 8th grade, and that funnel now is started much sooner. I'll give you, for example, and I know I spoke about my son's.
But you're cutting kids in 9th and 10th grade too.
100%, but I would argue that they're closer to their athletic potential in 9th grade than they are in 7th grade. And I'll give you the example. My son, and I know I hate talking about my son, but I will. He was 5'8" and about 122 pounds last year as a 7th grader. He's now almost 5'11" and 158 pounds a year later. He's a completely different kid 1 year later. He could have been potentially cut as a 7th grader, right? And maybe decided to go to do whatever. Who knows what he would have done. So that's one concern I do have, is that, yes, it's great we're giving opportunity, but we're also creating, to your point, that funnel is starting to start already. And that concerns me, because you get the late bloomer. In a sense, we could be discouraging them early and they might not come back. And that's scary to me, because there are kids we see it all the time. The best 8th grader isn't necessarily the best senior. I have coaches who tell me that all the time, and I agree with them. You just never know where your athletic journey will take you. That's the scary part of the good and the bad part of modified, right? We're starting that, and we're kind of putting them on their path, but we could also be losing some of the kids that would be maybe potentially your best players, but now they choose to go to somewhere else, to do something else. you know. So just to your point.
Catalina?
So we do have a very good athletic program. My sons went through it, but also it is expensive. And the one thing we haven't spoken about, and we want large participation from all students. Some students cannot afford just to try a sport like lacrosse. It's extremely expensive. Having modified could potentially have students that would never even try a sport in high school at an earlier stage. And we do have families in our district that have to say, my 2 children cannot play this sport if they're over $1,000 just for fall itself, if they have 2 children, having 3 children. And I think that's something we have to look at too, especially with 400 units coming in, looking at, single families. And, I mean, the spectrum of incomes in this district.
Yeah, no, this cost is something we're always so sensitive to, and I think we've demonstrated that. And it's an important consideration. It's something that certainly we'd have to take into the calculus as we do our research. The reality is it's not necessary. The tryout will be based on the coach's assessment during the tryout period, so there could be no guarantees made, but it provides an opportunity. So that's a great point. It provides an opportunity.
It provides an opportunity.
Sure.
Cheryl?
I'm
Mike?
set for now, thanks.
All right, Mike?
Jackie, you skip.
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Just one last question, which is, so if we added
In the microphone.
If we added 1 or 2 or whatever modified sports, I made a comment that it would be at the expense of something else. Is that a fair statement, or is that something that?
The whole budget process is negotiating priorities and negotiating the reality of our circumstances. So yeah, you're right. When we decided last spring that we wanted to add school resource officers in the elementary schools, I thought it was one of the smartest decisions that our board has made and our district has made. But make no mistake, there were other cuts that we had to realize to bring the SROs to fruition. So when we create a budget, we spend 98 cents on every dollar of that budget, maybe more. It might be 98 to 99 cents on every dollar we spend. So yes, especially within a tax cap environment where the increase in our spending is fixed, and there are other costs. There are retirement costs that are going up, health insurance costs that are going up, there's transportation contract costs that are going up, there are other contractual expenses that we have, fuel oil for our buildings. Each building is 60,000 square feet. We have more than 250,000 square feet across our district. We're not immune to that. So yes, adding to the budget would obviously mean that something has to be relooked at or removed. It's just...
So irregardless if it's a modified team or a JV volleyball team, something would have to be looked at in order to accomplish either or.
I believe that would be the case. The extent of that, though, would vary based on sports.
Correct.
So if we're talking about...
In generality.
In generality, it would be something, but a track team, I don't see being very expensive to bring in. A football team at $400 to $500 per helmet, at 60 helmets and shoulder pads and all the other equipment that comes with that, and the coaching, supervision, transportation for games, official costs. So we would have to make further reductions, but there are certain teams that just have a lower operating expense where the reductions or the trade-offs wouldn't be as significant.
All right, Kathleen, I'll give you one last question, then we're going to wrap it up and talk about next steps.
No, it's not a question. It's just I think I'm thankful for the initial steps to start, especially with our Board of Ed areas of focus, which is student connectedness. I really do think that this is an initial step towards that goal.
Yeah. And I began by thanking you all for this opportunity to be able to look at this and study, because I learned a lot and I had more questions. All of those items that I put on the board for consideration are not to dissuade, but they're realities that I'm charged with figuring out, and Rob as well, we're charged with figuring out spaces. We will be the first to get calls that say, my high schooler is practicing till 10 o'clock at night. This is horrible, what gives? Those are questions that we'll have to research and be able to answer so that we can bring a program forward, and if we don't have good answers, we'll let you know that, and we'll make some decisions from there.
Thank you. Go ahead. I just said we were wrapping it up. Go
We
ahead.
are, and so next
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah, next
I
steps.
guess one of the things that I'm interested in is, this is the most people we've had at a meeting in quite a while, so thank you all for coming out. I truly would like to hear more from you about what you're looking for. I get that we are interested in modified sports, but what are we trying to accomplish? What is it that you want? You know, what kind of teams? What are we replacing? Like, give us a little more input along the way, and maybe at some point, the next steps are some surveys or something.
Yeah, I was just going to
But I need
suggest-
more information from the community about what it is that what do you want modified sports to accomplish, I guess is what I'm asking. You know?
So we can
Is
work
it you
toward-
don't like the freshman model? Sorry, you don't like the freshman model, you want it to begin earlier, or there's gaps in the town programs that we want to fill? You know, what is it exactly that you're trying to accomplish in asking about modified sports? That's where I need to go.
So we can do it, and I really commend the board for initiating several surveys this year. You've done in my estimation, a great job of soliciting that community input, whether it's for which committees to form, whether it's for the construction projects, and we can add that for modified sports as well. So we can develop something, share it with you for review, and then issue that to the community and hear the community's input.
So could we have a place on our website where people can know to go to access some of this stuff?
With regard to modified sports?
Or surveys in general, or you know, where would people be able to
So
find?
generally, it's an email. I'll blast a letter out to the community, and I try to, what I've heard from the community is I have to be brief, because understandably, people are busy. So I try to just put short hitting headlines for people to read, and then links where we can go for more information if it's a topic that interests us. So I put that in one of our updates. We can include it on the landing page of our website. And I think I put out a reminder as well when I put
Okay.
out a survey. Generally, I'll put the initial notification out and then a reminder a week before the survey results are due.
Okay, so the next step would be you'll do a survey, then you'll come back to us with results of the survey, or do you want further time to investigate not just the results, or do you want to come back to us with the results and then see what the next step should be?
Yes, I think that would, if that's okay with you, I'd like to get the results, share the results with you, present them publicly, and then we can determine next steps from there.
Okay, so when would you anticipate a survey going out? Mid-November?
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
I'd like to craft it first,
Yeah.
because a good survey takes a little time to
Yeah.
write and to create. So for all intents and purposes, we're in late October. I just want to be able to make sure, and I want you to feel comfortable with the survey as well. So I don't anticipate it being before your next meeting,
Right.
which is earlier in November. And then from there, we can revise the survey, refine it, make sure that we're asking the right questions so that we can
Right.
get good information that will be useful to you and to us.
My only concern with the timeline is we're starting to hit the holiday season,
Yeah.
and I don't want to put this on parents in the holiday season, because everybody misses emails when you're so busy juggling all that
yep.
stuff. So we don't do it sooner,
So-
then maybe we should wait until the first of the year. I don't know how you want to work that, but that concerns me.
Can I let you know tomorrow?
You could let us know next week. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. Thank you to
Do
the
you wanna
community for
take
coming
a-
out. Appreciate it.
You want to take a brief recess?
We can take 2 minutes.
Okay, we're just going to take a brief recess. We have plenty of meeting to go on, but for those who are here for the presentation, you're welcome to stay, but we want to be respectful of your time, so if you choose to leave, we won't, we completely understand. So we'll take a brief recess, but you're welcome to stay if you'd like.
Okay. And I think we're wondering if the superintendent finished his report.
And a couple of other things, but we can move.
Are you sure you have, no, what did you have?
No, just a thank you to our community. We hosted a really well-attended football game on Friday night. Even in the rain, we had about 2,000 people show up to that game. Just a huge thank you to our community. It's always so great to see members of the community come out, come together. Peter and I were on the sideline for that game, getting rained on for a couple of hours, and I'm just always so impressed by our students and how incredibly supportive our community is. Even in the rain, we had so many members of our community come out to support our school, to support our team, and it's just a testament to what a terrific community that we live in. And so I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the community for showing up in just the worst of weather conditions. We kept the game on. We didn't want to cancel the game because of the other implications that would play out, and the weather wasn't severe enough to do that. But just tremendous admiration for our community, and we look forward to hosting another home playoff game on Friday night. So we wish all of our teams. We have so many teams in the postseason right now. I don't know the results. I know our soccer team was going. There's so many wonderful things happening, and that's a testament to our coaches, to our students, their families, our athletic director certainly. Great things are happening, and we're getting into soon enough. We'll have our fall comedy, our fall drama production coming. The stage is completed, and I will tell you that the reviews have been incredible, and they've been unanimously incredible of the new stage, so I'm looking forward to the first theatrical performance on that stage. More information will follow on that as we get closer into November. And then we're in concert season before you know it, and our children get to perform on a beautifully new renovated high school stage. So thank you to our steering committee for making that happen.
Did the new curtains go up too?
Not yet.
Just asking. Okay. So we're going on to our board discussion item. We're back to board committees. So we did the community survey. We have the survey responses. And it looked like it was overwhelmingly the community thinks we should focus on an educational vision committee, unless anybody read that different than I read it. Anybody?
No, I read it,
We all read it.
yeah, the same way.
Okay.
That was
So
somewhat of a rhetorical question.
I'm
I
just,
hope.
what I'm
I was shocked
asking,
you looked at us.
is-
I thought that was a statement more than a question.
Yes.
it's a statement, but it's,
I think it was 44 people asked for Ed Vision.
44, yep.
Yeah, next closest was 18, so it wasn't really
Okay.
close.
So is this a committee that the board is interested in setting up for this school year? Well, that's, the next step is it a committee we want? What's the charter for the committee? What's the makeup of the committee? And then assigning board members to the committee. So if Educational Vision
Well-
is the committee,
I'll kick it off.
go ahead, you kick it off.
To me, we shouldn't have put a survey out with an educational committee vision committee on there if we weren't interested in having it as a committee. So I think, we should seriously consider that as the first committee that we add. If we don't add any others, that's okay. But to address your other questions, I would say put some people in charge of it and let them come back to us with a vision and a strategy on how it's going to go, and then the board can discuss it and go forward from there. That would be my approach.
I totally agree. Totally agree, Mike. It's something that where a couple people take it as a charter, get it, what does it look like? What is, in conjunction with what the vision of the district is? And I liken it to when we did the wellness committee, is we had a board member that owned it and then worked together with individuals, and they created the policy or the direction of the committee. So I think with the education committee, we just need to be careful that it doesn't become counter to what our curriculum looks like, or anybody tries to go in a direction that is not the direction of our
Vision.
It's a higher
district.
level committee, it's not
Right.
one to direct the superintendent or direct
Correct.
any,
That's how I envision it too.
right.
Well, any committee we need to make sure that we don't overstep what the board's level,
Yes.
is versus the administration who handles the day-to-day implementation of it. So it has to stay at a policy level.
Okay. Who has interest to be on this committee?
I do.
Okay. You're the only one.
I would take charge of it as well. I would be happy to spearhead it, being an educator and only having one being on policy alone. I know a lot of people are on multiple committees.
How many people?
3 is the max, yeah.
We have a couple people not here tonight who I'm not sure what their interest level is. I mean, I'm not overly interested in it, but, obviously I would step up if we needed somebody, but maybe we should confer with some of the other people before we say anything.
Okay.
We currently sit pretty much 2 per committee. I mean, we pretty much have, each of us has been sitting on 2 committees, right?
Rashmi only sits on 1.
Okay. So, yeah, so Mike brings up a good point. I don't know how she would feel, if she would have any interest.
You have 2.
I have 2.
You have 1.
He has
No.
wellness, though, too, right? Wellness
No.
and,
What do you have?
Did you
No, you're not on
Did you
audit
kick me
anymore.
off the audit?
Pete's
Yes,
on
you're off
fiscal-
of audit.
Pete's on fiscal advisory.
Oh, on fiscal advisory. So, but I would think if it was one of the other committees that they went out to the survey, I would absolutely have volunteered. But I don't think this is my expertise, and I think there's others on the board that are better served in it. So that's the only reason why I'm
Okay.
not stepping up.
Right. And Kathleen, I have no objection to your being on the committee or leading it. My concern is, as an educator, you bring a lot, but are you able to separate your education piece from the oversight piece? Because that's going to be, I wonder if you're going to struggle with that a little bit. That's the only piece that I worry about.
I don't think I would struggle. I just think my expertise would just lend itself to that educational vision, especially having the administrators on there to guide us as well and the vision of the district.
Okay, do we want, trying to think who, Rashmi leads a committee, Lisa doesn't lead a committee, you don't lead a, do we want to wait? I mean, definitely you're on the committee. Put your hand up. Do we want to wait to see who else wants to be on the committee before we look to choose a chairperson? I mean, Lisa and Rashmi aren't here, so I don't know what their wants are at this point, what their passions are.
Well, Rashmi chairs a committee.
Lisa
Right.
doesn't.
Lisa doesn't. Lisa's on policy and audit.
Some of us are going to be on 3, someone's going to be on 3 committees.
Right.
I mean, I've done it before. Maybe we start with co-chairs, because it's your first year here. Maybe we start with co-chairs. Does that make sense?
I don't even know who else wants to be on it.
yeah, let's.
I know,
see
we
who
don't know
else
who
wants to be
else
on
wants
it.
to be
Let's,
on it.
yeah,
That's
let's
true.
extend the conversation and see who else
Why
wants to
create
be
the
on it.
structure before we know who's, I
Who
mean,
wants
to
to be
me,
on
there
it?
should be one person leading it, not.
So that's a good point, Pete. What if there are 2 or 3 people who are interested, they can get together, come up with what the, charter is, what the vision is, et cetera, and then based on that, they can
We
could
can
sort
figure out
out,
who the leader is?
who's the right
Okay.
person to lead it. You're
Peter,
asking
did
somebody
you
to
say-
lead something we don't know anything about right now.
Peter, did you say something about grades, or what did you say? I didn't hear your last comment. Something about what the No, because you brought up something. I thought I heard something about grades, and actually, whether you said it or not, that
No,
may
I
not be a
didn't.
bad idea.
I did not say anything about
We could
grades.
split up the vision committee into different, into different grade levels too, because we would have different discussions as far as the vision. But I'm just saying. That's something we would need to consider too. The vision may be different in the high school than it is for elementary schools.
But
so.
those would be, that would be.
Well, if you're talking about co-chairs, you may want to split it up that way. That would be my only suggestion.
Well, we know that Catalina wants to be definitely on the committee and maybe lead the committee. Maybe we see who else wants to be on the committee, nail down the 3 people, and then maybe collectively,
Yeah.
we move forward before we set a chair.
Yeah, doesn't matter who's the chair, there's no committee yet, so.
Yeah, I know.
They don't have anything to do, I don't,
Well, there has to be a charter. and
Right,
the-
so
the
let's
three of them have to
let the
work.
three people flesh all of that out, and
With
then
the
once that's
administration.
done, with the administration, once that's done, it might become obvious,
Okay.
who's gonna be leading the committee, or maybe not.
Because the two that are not here might say they can't do it also.
Or they
Right.
don't, yeah, exactly.
So,
All right, but we can poll the board on that.
Yeah, so
As a
we'll poll the board and we'll see who wants to be on the committee. And then from there, those three will meet with administration and then start the process. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we have a committee. Done. Okay. We're going to do board reports. Policy, Cheryl. Did you use your new handy dandy
I
sheet?
did. I have it
used
right
mine
here.
too.
Right here. Yes, just a reminder of who is on the policy committee. In addition to me, we have Lisa Roll, Catalina Tyndall, Dr. Hatter, Ms. Sanfilippo, Ms. Ammerling, Dr. McGinnis, Ms. Margot May from our law firm, Yvette is there for all of our support and it keeps us going and on top of our agendas. So just, I know one of the first things we want to talk about is who attends. Typically, we have a full house. So we've been missing one from our last three meetings. Our last three meetings since my last update were on September 21st, October 5th, and October 19th. We reviewed 27 policies. I'm getting a look from Jackie. I'm thinking, we're speeding through them, but we've been very efficient, very efficient. It's because we're meeting so much. So we have thoroughly reviewed them all. What else? Oh, so one of the recommendations we'd like to make to the board is that because we have been reviewing so many, meeting twice a month has allowed us to not speed through, but get through a lot of material. And at 27 for the past month or so, I think we're, really right on track to where we need to be and probably a little bit ahead of where we would expect to be. We're going to propose that we meet once per month from now on, at least until after the winter break. And especially with the holidays coming up and people with busy schedules, I think it makes sense. What we'd also like to propose is that second meeting per month, as we use that second meeting typically last year for the Code of Conduct, which served us very well. We would like to use that more for some of the heftier policies. And then one policy that we need to look at this point, because it's been some time, is the wellness policy. So probably around January or February, we will reinstitute the second meeting of the month, and that will be used primarily for wellness. So that was our proposal from our last meeting. Follow-up items, it's one of the things Mike put in the template that we're using currently. Any follow-up that we do is usually done internally, so we're very lucky that we have a great administrative team that we are continually following up on things. So there are policies that we follow up on. We may hit it once, review it once at one meeting, but then those policies some follow-up is needed, a more intensive look by someone who is the administrator or implements that policy on a consistent basis. And I'll just give an example. The last example I have is we had a policy on voter registration, and it's a policy that just needs a look by the high school principals, the high school administrative team. That went out to Mr. DeGennaro actually one night during a policy meeting. I think it was last Thursday, and by, I think, 9 o'clock the next morning, Mr. DeGennaro had it back to us. So that's the typical follow-up that we have. It's usually internal and intrinsic to the actual committee. Not really, happening. You won't really see it, but we'll be handling it internally. And our next meeting date is on November 2nd.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
It's easy when you
Great
follow a
template,
report,
Mike.
yeah. Audit committee, yeah, I know you're not on it. And Reshmi sent an email saying that they have not met since the last meeting, so that's that. So we'll give Mike fiscal advisory.
Ditto for the Fiscal Advisory Committee. We actually meet tomorrow morning. That's our next meeting. We have not met since the last report.
Okay. And steering, we met twice since the last board meeting, September 26th, October 10th. So the people who normally attend from district officers, Ron, Lisa, Alicia, and Dennis. From Aris Contracting, John Patrick Jackson, and Paul Tazi's been attending. From Mamasi, we have Tina and Daryl, and Cheryl and I are the board members on there. The items we've been discussing was the progress of the auditorium stage flooring, which we know now is done. Our meetings have been focused on narrowing the scope of the project to fit within a tax-neutral bond, and the discussions around proposing a second proposition to include the other important needs. Or key highlights, there's Aris, we're projecting costs that were above what was tax neutral, so we worked really hard to narrow it down. We've been reviewing cost estimates and proposed architectural draft suggestions. We've been trying to define a timeline and the items that are needed that would put us out to a vote in February, which is our proposal. And our follow-up items are to keep to the timeline for the February vote and to work with the attorney to draft the secret for us. And our next meeting is tomorrow. So that's board reports. So we're going to go up to board action items. Can I have a motion to approve the October 2nd meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Can I have a motion to approve the treasurer's reports for July, August, and September?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Claims audit report, a motion to approve the claims audit reports for July, August, and September.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, I just want people to know the reason that we're approving 3 treasurer's report and 3 audit reports and 3 classroom reports is because we had to wait for the external auditor to finish his audits before they were able to continue on to this year's books. So that's just the reason that we're jamming these up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Extra classroom reports, a motion to approve the extra classroom reports for July, August, and September.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, policy. A motion to approve the first read and adoption of the following policies: 5150, age of attendance, school admissions and attendance areas; 6710, purchasing authority. A motion to approve the second reading and adoption of the following policies: 0100, non-discrimination and equal opportunity; 1740, relationship with non-public schools; 2382, recordings of board meetings; and 5210, student organizations. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the purchasing authority. The only thing I wondered was, we actually put in Lisa's name as just a title. Was that something we're required to do now? Okay. Okay, all right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have conduct a first read on the following policies and regulations: 4315, health education; 4526.1, internet safety; 4526.1, its regulation; 8133, use of security systems; and 8133, or the regulation that goes with it. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No, I do. Internet safety. A couple of things, Cheryl. The
Yes.
technology director, that's not the title, it's director of technology. You talk about an assistant superintendent or designee, but we have 2 assistant superintendents. Which one? And when we talk about the responsible use policy, we're not using its correct title. Sorry.
No, those will get caught when I go through it. I do my review after the first reads.
Okay.
But thank you. I do appreciate you mentioning.
All right,
Because I will
so,
definitely write them down and be sure to address them
All
when I
right.
go through my read. Yeah, thanks.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
We're up to personnel. Okay, upon recommendation, superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. Under certified personnel, we have appointments, part-time and temporary appointments, other compensation, which are the co-curriculars at the middle school and the high school, additions to the substitute list, coaching, it's teaching stipends, certified teaching assistant stipends, coaches and co-curriculars, volunteers, unpaid leave of absence, corrections, and some resignations. Under classified personnel, we have additions to the substitute list and some removals from the substitute list. And police monitor.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Personnel, also on recommendation of the superintendent, a motion that the following be approved. These are the graduate credit lane changes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed. Director's terms and conditions of employment, be it resolved that the board authorizes the superintendent to execute the revised July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023 terms and conditions of employment for the director and assistant directors group as presented to the board at this meeting. A copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed. Business office independent skier. Whereas the Lakeland Central School District has requested that one student from the Lakeland High School be permitted to participate in the Yorktown High School ski team as a separate ski team under the shadowing rules for Section 1 and the New York State Public School High School Association, and the Yorktown Central School District wishes to permit such participation. Therefore, be it resolved, we're going to allow it. I'm not reading the whole thing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Go ahead.
This is a little cloudy for me. So there's a Lakeland High School student who's going to just participate as a Lakeland High School team?
Correct. This
but
is not a
practice
team
and travel
merger.
with us? This is not him being, this person being part of
The student would.
our team?
Correct. This is
Okay.
not a merger, which we have engaged in when the need arises.
Right.
This is an independent skier from Lakeland, just kind of piggybacking on the transportation, where we do share some of the transportation costs. They have one person who qualifies for the ski team. We have several children who are on our ski team. So to save on transportation costs, that student will take the bus with ours. We'll bill Lakeland for whatever costs we incur or their portion of the cost. But yes, you're correct. This is an independent skier, not part of the Yorktown Central School District team.
We've done this before, is this correct, with other things we've
Yes.
done it with
We've done it with
gymnastics?
Lakeland with skiing in each of the past, I want to say 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Are we required to provide additional insurance or anything like that for this one?
They're under the Lakeland
Insurance,
insurance.
right, so
Yeah, they're a
they're-
Lakeland skier. The transportation agreement, we sign all of the waivers and indemnifications to protect our interests.
Okay, yeah, that's, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion to accept the following change order from Jennings and Company for the summer 2021 high school gym renovation project. This is additional steel supports of replacing the gym curtains.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Band trip, a motion to approve the Yorktown High School trip to Ithaca, New York for the Wind Ensemble Northeast Band Festival at Ithaca College, May 3rd, 2024, and May 5th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vendor agreements, a motion to approve the attached amendments to the following vendor agreements. We have amendment number 1 for snow removal at Maple Leaf, amendment number 1 for thermodynamics for boiler and heating system maintenance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PIPS, a motion to approve the increase for the 23-24 budget to $5,537 for a donation received to cover purchase of basketball shooting machine.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, can you just explain, we received a donation and now we have to increase our budget so we can put the money in? Is that how it works, Lisa?
Yes, so when you receive a donation, an unexpected donation, there's no money in the expenditure code to expend it, so you have to increase both sides of your budget so that it can then be purchased. Otherwise, we would be using our own funds to have to purchase it, which is not what we want to do.
Is that different than if they had just donated the equipment?
It is different,
That's
yes.
what happened, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PIPS, a motion to approve the following Yorktown Congress of Teachers Professional Improvement Program proposals that are listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
Just comment, it's nice to see that our teachers are back and utilizing this again for a number of years, obviously, for COVID reasons and whatnot. There wasn't a lot of additional professional development outside of the area, so it's actually nice to see that we're using that budget line item again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Special ed, a motion to arrange the following placements as of October 23rd, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? An independent contract, a motion to approve the independent contract for the 23-24 school year for Pearl Care Search Group.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed. Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations at Crampon, $930.71 from the Crampon PTA for the purchase of playground supplies. At Mohansick, $2,000 from the Mohansick PTA for the Chris Polo School Assembly. And at Yorktown High School, $300 from the Seafarer Biggs for the initiation fee and set up to start a Yorktown High School Science Honor Society.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're up to board comments. Pete?
Just thank you, Dr. Hatter and Rob, for putting that presentation together. I thought it was very well done, and it also allowed the community to start to have some input on what's going on. I encourage the community to continue to come out. If there's things you want to see or do or have, these are the kind of things that need to be done in order to accomplish that. So I remember the last, again, modified, it took a while it took a couple budget seasons to get through. So, but that does not mean it can't be done. So thank you.
Catalina?
Yes, I want to thank the community for coming out tonight, and also Dr. Hatter and Rob for the presentation. I think, like I said before, are one of the areas of focus, student connectedness, and I think this is an initial step, just talking about it. And I think we saw parent connection as well, I think with the surveys we've been doing and with the presentations as well. We see that the community is getting more connected, and the committee survey that we had as well. I also want to comment on what you said about the pink game that we had, and all of the varsity games that we've been having. We've seen students from Brookside, Crampons, everywhere. They're coming. It's a Friday night now at Yorktown that everybody wants to go and participate. I work the food truck, so I know everybody's coming out. So it's really just nice to see the community coming together after so many years. And my last comment is from the initiative that you had sent out for all the teachers, the service dogs coming to the school, and it's just really nice on the website seeing what special programs were given from your first wave.
Mike?
I've said a lot already. I echo Peter and Catalina's comments. It's good to see input on all levels. Just we'll keep having the discussions as the budget season goes on. So thank you.
Cheryl?
I thought that the presentation on modified sports tonight was very thorough for this stage in the game. So I thank you and Dr. Hatter and Mr. Barrett for that. It definitely gives us something to think about. And I do like the connectivity piece that we have in community members starting to come to board meetings. And also the use of the surveys. I think that really connects us to the community, and we really get a better idea of what people are thinking and how we can bring that information together and, make some targeted decisions around what people, what their needs are and their desires. So I think that's been a great approach that's been serving us well. So thank you for putting together. I know those surveys take some time, so thank you for spearheading those.
Yeah, thank you for both presentations. The facilities one is really important, and I'm grateful that you update us every board meeting on it. I hope the community really understands the needs. It was wonderful to see the room full. I wish more people would come out. Please fill the room. It's nice to know that we're talking to people. Thank you for the modified sports. It's a lot to put on your plate to ask you to go back and investigate new programs, but we're impressed that you do it, and we're thankful that you put in the time and the effort, and that your entire administrative team cares enough about kids to do it. So we thank you very much for that. Ron, Lisa, Deirdre, anything? Nope. Anybody for public comment? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed? Good night, everyone.